Hey, good morning, everyone. We're just going to wait for 1 minute and then we'll get started. I'm guessing a lot of folks will be at the right of boom today, so it's going to be like a little bit of a light attendance today. So. Morning, Dennis. I hope you saw the login audit feature. We've added that back into the user interface. I know it was great.
Yes, I did. And thank you very much. That's actually very helpful for us to be able to kind of see, because we're going to end up creating a lot of user accounts. And so it really is helpful to be able to see who's logging in and go back to them and make sure that they're actually using the product. Appreciate that. Are you in Tampa, Shiva? Are you?
No, Dennis. Unfortunately, because of the travel restrictions, I couldn't be there. But
okay.
I hope to be there pretty soon. Okay. So I'm just saying, I guess we can get started. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So. Okay, so the first thing which I want to talk about is basically the updates for the new architecture deployment. So we actually did go ahead, deploy. We basically moved some of our instances, did the complete testing. And then last week, we actually went for what is called the AWS well-architected review. So basically, we had created the infrastructure, and then we basically went through the well-architected review. And as part of the well-architected review, they have given us a bunch of comments. And for example, we had essentially created data stores in 6 regions, and basically for GDPR purposes, but our API layers were basically in a single region because we thought it would be easier to manage. And then based on the well-architected review comments that came out, they essentially asked us to deploy the API layer as well as the user interface layer in all the 6 regions, because and showed us how to do this with CI/CD pipeline so that we can essentially kind of have fault isolation in case there is a problem in a certain region. So, and then we've been asked to implement certain failover policies also, so that even if, for example, US East, Amazon has a problem, then you will be redirected to US West. So we are basically making those infrastructure changes. In addition to that, there were certain changes that were recommended in terms of breaking down code a little bit more granularly to essentially allow this to scale much better. So we essentially were also learning from some of the things that were happening in the instances. Like last week, I know that quite a few of you would have faced some 500 errors, etc., which we essentially saw was because of some of the new features we were adding. Elasticsearch was undergoing some load, and then it was essentially giving us timeout exceptions. And so those were being encountered, and we fixed all of those in the instances last week. But we have to take care of this in the as the load increases in Elasticsearch. So how do we essentially scale out Elasticsearch as we go forward is basically something that we've put together over there. So that way what will happen is that we'll not face these kinds of issues basically going forward. So once that well-architected review is done, we were hoping that by Feb 11th, we'll have the SOC 2 team also finish their infrastructure review, because we didn't want to go through another cycle after that. And then finish the migration by Feb 15th and have a release by Feb 17th. And then whatever we have in the current infrastructure, we want to migrate along with the new features. But we had a little bit of a problem because the software infrastructure review, they have said they will not be able to complete it till Feb 18th. So, which essentially means that we can only complete the migration by Feb 25th. So one of the things that we are doing right now is we understand that like for the past 2 weeks, we've not released any features, and we have all the features which are there in the code, but we have not released them. So the plan is that in the current infrastructure on Feb 15th, we'll release the current code with patching and basically some of the new compliance reports, etc., that we had already coded for. All of those will be released on Feb 15th. And then we will basically merge that with the Feb 25th goal. And then basically, then we will have the final release on Feb 27th. So this is essentially a little bit of a deviation, but we cannot do much because we want to basically make sure that the SOC 2 review is completed and we have the SOC 2 certificate as part of this migration, so that it gives you the confidence that basically we are fully audited. And also basically to your customers, you can say that your vendor is basically SOC 2 compliant. So we will be producing that certificate to you. And as I said, we are basically having a 6-region deployment. So actually the Kubernetes clusters are being created in 6 regions. One is in US West, one is US East, one in Canada, one in UK, one in EU. That data center is most likely Amsterdam. And the last one is essentially Australia. So these are basically the 6 regions in which this is going to be deployed. So we just wanted to kind of keep you updated on where we are with this entire migration. Then the other updates. So it was basically a very, it was not so nice a week last week for us, because one of the threat hunters went and basically marked our agent download location as basically a malware. So we got a mail from Amazon to essentially remove the CyberCNS agent download. And if you would have seen that, we immediately migrated that whole agent download process to your own servers. So essentially we had to do that. And then during this process, we essentially kind of also realized that the whole security world is like behaves like God in reality, because once a person basically marks some download of yours as malware, then basically there is no respite. You cannot essentially contest it. We tried so many forums, we tried all of this stuff. And then what happened is that Sectigo, which is the one that issued the certificate to us, basically revoked the certificate. When we went back to them asking for, like, why did they revoke the certificate, and showing them that this is not malware, they essentially said that they couldn't even speak to us because they don't speak to anyone who basically, whose certificate they have revoked. In fact, we have close to $1,500 basically stuck with them, because we placed orders for new certificates, which they did not honor. So right now we already have a process to get the new certificate from Thought and to sign the agent. So we finished all the reviews. So right now it is basically with them. And we are hoping that by the end of this week, we'll get the certificate. And if that comes through, then we'll be able to sign the new agent and release it to everyone. But I think one of the good things that we learned out of this is that since this particular field seems to be like, there seems to be only 2 or 3 people, it seems to be very tightly controlled. I think there is an opportunity to create something like Let's Encrypt for developers. So that was a realization that we had within this process. But we are extremely sorry for the problems that it's creating in terms of when you put agents, etc. It is basically coming up in all the antivirus, etc. as basically being malware. The point is that we've published all the SHA checksums, everything on the website. So as long as those checksums match, you are safe. There is no basically malware in this, and we are basically double checked it and triple checked this whole. The next thing is that one of the surprises that came up was this concept of preview patches for security. We didn't see this earlier, but recently we started seeing these preview patches. It was not properly handled earlier because we didn't kind of see this very well. But what we are doing right now is a preview patch, if it is installed, will be recognized and will show the system as being fully patched. Whereas a preview patch will not be recommended for installation. So it won't basically say that if a preview patch is available, it won't say you have to update this patch. So that part of it is also taken care of. The only thing that we are kind of a little bit stuck with is that how do you deal with vulnerabilities that come as part of a preview patch? Should we essentially, right now what we do is we just suppress it and then basically make sure that it is suppressed and it's not shown. But since the vulnerability already exists, it might not be the right thing to do, but we basically kind of have taken this route. If any of you think that it should be any different, please let us know. We will basically modify that. This was what I was talking about. We basically ordered the login audit function, and this was essentially something that Dennis had been asking for a long time, and I hope this will solve that issue. We also have we have basically provided customization. So there is you can basically on a per company basis, you can essentially change the colors in your graphs, and you can basically change the header colors on your Excel. So that entire thing has been made customizable. So you can essentially kind of define whether the text has to be bold, whether the header has to be bold, all of those settings and what should be the size. Everything is basically provided as a customizable feature here. So this way, what you can do is you can basically do these customizations, and then all these standard reports that come out, whether it is doc or XLS, will essentially have these colors set up. So we hope this actually was one of the feedback that came from folks. So we basically introduced this particular feature. The next one is that basically a long-standing feature, which was essentially people want to know when a probe goes down. So this essentially is also there. So you have new alerts which basically say that a probe went down, and basically the ability for you to get notified on this. The notifications are not one per probe. The notifications are summary notifications. So it actually accumulates all the probes that are down across all the companies and basically raises a ticket. There were certain things that, for example, Adam had asked in terms of customization. So you can actually change the product name on the login page, and you can change the logo, of course. And basically, the other thing is that we have also made it possible for you to essentially kind of, we've changed the location of where you're downloading the agent from because of the problem that we had last week, as I spoke to you about. There was a request for Excel reports for CIS 8.0, ISO 27002, and NIST 800, which also was basically pushed last week. But basically the implementation groups based reporting is basically being worked on and will come as part of the next patch. So basically, I will basically present that in the next call, where we will basically go through how the implementation groups based reports basically are classified, and we'll take feedback and then we can basically improve upon that. There is also basically a new security summary report, which was essentially asked for. Actually, one of the Eric basically had asked for this report. And so we've added that security summary report, which again has a whole bunch of things that we like, which are available in multiple reports, but we essentially have put it together in the security summary report. One of the things is that we also added one thing which is called a password policy summary under the AD user audit, which essentially talks about each domain and their password policy and all of the details of that particular domain. So if you have multiple domains, all of that essentially appears over here. We also plan to essentially then move this into the global dashboard, where you can see the password policy summary across all of the companies and their domains. So this is essentially what we've been working on. So please let us know if you have any questions, suggestions, and we'll basically be happy to take that and work on it.
Are there plans to have the Azure AD application have a verified status sometime soon, instead of showing unverified with the this application could be risky warning?
So we've already basically kind of applied for it. We have already done the verification, etc. I basically will check why it is still appearing as unverified in your case, but from our UI, it is essentially appearing as verified. So I will basically go back and check with Microsoft support as to why it is there.
And is the CSP integration going to work anytime soon?
No, the CSP integration works. Is there anything that is not working as part of the CSP integration?
Yeah, support told me yesterday that it didn't work.
No, the CSP integration absolutely works. We have two applications, one for CSP, one for non-CSP. So the CSP application absolutely works and it is there. If you're having a problem with the CSP, please let me know where you're having a problem. And I will basically take care of it. It absolutely works. And I think quite a few people are using that CSP accounts in their instances.
Okay, I'll send you the ticket number.
Yeah, please do. I will basically take care of it. Marcia, the alerts can use the PSA integration to open close tickets. Yes. Can we have password policy also for Azure AD? Yes, we are in the process of building that. We just got this release. We'll also basically, whatever we get for AD, we will also basically always get it for Azure AD also. So that is basically being implemented. You will see it in the next patch. So patch remediation, it's already tested ready. It is coming up in the patch I said on Feb 15th. You will essentially see it go live. And as I said, it's an opt-in. By default, it's off. If you opt in, then you can essentially do this. How do I see the firewall report in the standard reports tab, but noticed it exists in global reports, but not on per customer? Michael, we created a separate thing called firewalls and put all the reports under the firewall itself because it seemed more convenient. Because each firewall, we produce one report per firewall. There is no summary firewall report unless anybody thinks that's a good idea to provide a summary of all the firewalls in a customer report. Because if there are multiple firewalls, we do not know how to basically structure it and basically show it in a proper table, which that's why we essentially put it under the firewalls piece. So the Chocolatey integration is coming along nicely, and that is the patch remediation feature that will come in that will be pre-released. Like it will not wait for the infrastructure upgrade. It will come in the current release itself, and then when the infrastructure upgrade happens, it will basically be part of that too. Mark, you said in Azure password should be disabled anyhow according to Microsoft. So not sure what that was for. Mark, you want to come on?
Oh, just somebody was asking about a password report for Azure AD, and Microsoft's recommendation on passwords in Azure is do not disable them anyway.
Yeah. So Sean, you're having an issue with the assessment report in the sense you can't open the report? So Vishali, can we reach out to Sean and basically figure out like what is the issue with this report? Please, can we open a ticket and take care of it?
Oh, I'll track it, sir.
Henry, you're right. Oh, what we are doing is that we are basically taking each implementation group, essentially creating broken down sections for each of the implementation groups. So as you're saying, you can basically choose which implementation groups you want to scan for, and we will essentially produce reports only for that particular implementation group. So Michael, remediation plan doesn't show all the vulnerabilities. Even if it showed the CVE detail, that would be handy because I would like to log tickets automatically, but it doesn't always include every vulnerability. So Michael, would it be okay if as part of the remediation plan, all of the vulnerabilities are basically converted into a CSV file that corresponds to that particular remediation and is attached as an attachment to the ticket?
Yeah, it would. I mean, obviously, it'd just be good to see all the vulnerabilities and all the remediations in that remediations tab, even if it's a little bit vague or if it refers to a CVE record, for instance. I think it seems to be quite common with other people as well that, you know, they're seeing a lot of vulnerabilities, but then it doesn't mention anything about remediating them in the remediation section. So yeah, just because of the way it logs tickets as well, Shiva.
Understood. So what we will do is that we will essentially log a ticket, and as part of it, we will essentially create a CSV which contains, or an Excel sheet which contains all the CVEs that that particular remediation would address. Then essentially, I think this parity will be there. But if there are certain vulnerabilities for which remediations are not being shown right now, that is a bug that we need to check. But
there just seems to be some sort of disconnect, Shiva, between the vulnerability. Like if you go on asset view and you look at your assets, there'll be like a D and it'll say, oh, you need to just run some Windows updates or you need to do X, Y, Z. But then that doesn't always reflect on the remediation plan. So I think the intelligence is there, but it's just not always connected, if that makes sense.
Understood. CIS G1 report. Okay. Is this something new, Mark? Unfortunately, I've been out of touch, but CIS G1 is something different.
I think there's 3 levels to the CIS, G1, G2, G3. So I think G1 is basically a baseline set of settings that they recommend. I mean, not everybody's going to go up to the G3 level. So being able to take the compliance reports and just target, you know, C1, C2, or G1, G2, or G3 would be nice.
Understood. George, any update on why CyberCNS is not detecting vulnerabilities for legacy operating systems? Are you talking about things like Windows 2000 or Windows XP kind of systems?
Yeah, I was specifically looking at like Server 2003, just because I have one specific client that has a legacy operating system that they don't use, but I still wanted it to be included in the reports, but I can't get it to show up at all. Is that just not even supported with CyberCNS because it's so old?
That's true, George, but basically I think what you're saying makes sense in terms of, I think we should be able to report on at least legacy systems and basically mark it as something that is not supported and basically will have a lot of vulnerabilities. So I will take that as a requirement and basically just get that sorted out. So Vishal, can you just note this down and put it in the backlog for release next week? All the legacy operating systems, we should at least mark them, create an asset for them, mark them, and then we have to essentially say that this is legacy. So we show them under operating system as legacy. So it has to basically be upgraded.
Noted, sir.
Well, then I had another question in regards to that, because after I noticed it wasn't showing up, my first step was to, I'm just going to install the lightweight agent on there, but the lightweight agent doesn't install on 2003. I'm not surprised, but I don't know if that's going to have to be, redesigning, or doing a agent update for the lightweight agent.
No, George, I think I know why that's happening, because what is built is a 64-bit version. And I think you might have a 32-bit version. That's why basically it didn't install. I will get a 32-bit version out, which will install on 2003.
Okay, and just for clarification, that would also affect 32-bit version Server 2008 operating systems as well, correct?
Correct. So that's why I'll release a 32-bit version. So that way what will happen is that it will cover all of those systems.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you.
Mercia, you're saying the compliance assessment still seems buggy. It shows the same number of compliant, non-compliant assets for all benchmarks. This was resolved last week, and we basically actually saw this differentiated across. If it's not happening to your system, if you can just let us know your URL. I just want to make sure that you're fully patched, and if you're on-prem, then maybe if your instance was, your minion was down, then we may not have patched your system. But if you're, please give us your URL, and we'll basically make sure that you're fully patched, because this specifically we looked at based on your comment last week, and we resolved this. So I have actually.
I had a ticket raised, Shiva, for this, and I think it's definitely improved. I would imagine that people are seeing non-R compliant because they probably aren't for any of those compliance purposes.
Yeah. So the concept is that if an asset has any items that are non-compliant, it is non-compliant. If it is compliant, it has to be fully compliant. That's how basically it is working right now.
Yeah, which I think is what we're seeing anyway. It definitely seems fixed compared to what it was a couple of weeks ago in our cloud instance anyway.
Yeah. So have an alert configured for increase in critical vulnerabilities. Notice that there was nothing, but many of our workstations were showing missing a key security patch. Is this a common issue? See, if you say increase in number of critical vulnerabilities, then it is essentially measuring whether the number of critical vulnerabilities increased from the previous day or not, right? So that's how it's basically measuring the increase. So it is possible that you patched something which was critical the previous day, and today again, basically the same number of vulnerabilities came in. That's the only reason for why it could not. The better thing to essentially do is to essentially kind of put an alert on the remediations, which would then basically give you an alert as soon as if you're basically missing a key security patch, that would essentially come up as an alert on your side. Is there a, so George, we do show Microsoft Exchange cumulative updates. If you're not seeing it for a specific version, please let us know. We'll get it checked because we've checked Exchange. Like last week, I myself checked 2013, 2017. I basically made checks with all of those versions.
Okay, yeah, I know. I just was going through stuff. I think it was over the weekend, and it's going through vulnerabilities, and I seen that it's like, oh, there's a vulnerability, and then I research it, and oh, I just have to apply the latest Exchange cumulative update, and then it got me thinking, well, shouldn't this show up in the remediation plan as, hey, you just have to apply this Exchange cumulative update? So that should be a feature within CyberCNS. It should catch that, correct?
Yep, it should catch it.
Okay, I'll review that and I'll open up a ticket. If it, I'll check again. If it doesn't, I'll open up a ticket.
Wonderful. Ahmed, any update on including solutions to vulnerabilities detected and surfacing them in the portal and in the reports? This is already happening, right, Ahmed? So you have the remediation plan, which tells you what is the solution to the vulnerabilities. And these are surfaced both at the asset level, company level, and at a global level, right? And it gives you exactly what version and what patch you need to install with the link to install it, right? So are we missing anything there? So Marcia, the assessment by backup and recovery configuration, this is basically the last part that is left, which we basically hadn't completed in the last version, but we have basically completed now. So as part of the next patch, you will essentially see, so we basically identify all the common backup agents. So on each asset, we essentially look for backup agents being present. And based on that, we essentially kind of fill up this configuration. Dennis, yes, the report builder, unfortunately, was not something that we kind of focused on till now, which is why it is stuck in beta. So we are basically going to add back not just whatever was there before, but more than what we had before, basically as part of the final release, that is the Feb 27th release. You will see a whole bunch of new blocks in the new report builder. Sean, will the password policy report show granular password policies in the Active Directory Admin Center? Yes, it will. There was a simple network share report in V1. Is there a plan to include in V2? Yes, we have already included it. Network shares plus local users. All of this has already been added. So this will basically be part of this release. So we've actually taken full parity from V1 and basically pulled it back in here and also added additional information. The other thing which we have also added is essentially, like one of the things that we did an analysis of was that a lot of failures are happening in different locations because of the way that we copy the agent and use SMB to basically kind of run the agent on remote systems, which is one of the reasons for why basically also people keep saying that this looks like malware, etc. The other thing which we are doing is that if we are not able to get to these remote systems, it fails, and then we basically have a lot of support tickets because of that. So one of the things we're doing is that in case we're not able to move the agent to those remote systems, we are going to essentially try to use WMI to pull the data. And whatever we can basically get out of WMI, we will essentially kind of get the data and then give you the vulnerabilities based on that. We may not get a few specific items, which we will basically mark in the UI. So only those which require local access, because we are not able to pull that data remotely. Only those will essentially not be working. However, if you have installed a lightweight agent, it will make no difference. It will be exactly the same as before. So, Marcia, yeah, we will basically look at this and see where it is appearing. And because I think we just pull the data from Microsoft in terms of the description, maybe they've added some new links in the description. We'll essentially kind of convert them into links. Okay, so the next one, difference between company diagnostic settings versus asset diagnostic settings. So as you would have seen, when you basically have an asset, we essentially give you a rating for the asset. So the asset diagnostic setting essentially allows you to kind of dictate how we should be grading an asset. So like, for example, what weightage you want to give for vulnerabilities versus what weightage you want to give for compliance, what weightage you want to that is entirely something that you can control from a per asset basis. The company diagnostic settings allows you to basically get a rating for the company, which is not just an average of all the assets. So earlier we used to basically just do an average grading of all the assets and provide the score from a company perspective. But now what we allow you to do is to also define the goals from a company perspective. So your goals from a company perspective may say that I should have no more than 10% of the assets which basically have critical vulnerabilities. So those kinds of metrics are defined in the company diagnostic settings. And of course, this company diagnostic settings, you can switch on and off. You're given a toggle by which you can essentially just do it as an average across all the assets, or you could define your own metric to basically create this. So that's essentially what these are.
Okay, yeah, thanks for clearing that up. You also, just for clarification, explain a little bit further, specifically for like security report card, local firewall, on how that condition works for global and for assets, or for company and for asset vulnerabilities?
Yeah, so basically, if you're, the security scorecard basically is very simple. It essentially says you have antivirus, right? So if your antivirus is installed and basically running and is up to date, then basically you get a score of 5. If it is installed but not up to date, you get a score of 3. And if it is not installed, you basically get a score of 1. So that's basically how the grading goes. So similarly for the Windows firewall, depends on what policies are enabled. If basically the local policy is enabled, but basically the domain policy is not enabled, then basically you get a certain rating. So that's how essentially we have designed those security cards, etc. Those right now are not exactly customizable, and that is something that we are working towards making customizable so that you can define your own rating for these different criteria that we put in there.
Okay, because I know I had a customer who they have only workstations. You know, they have their firewall turned on for the domain profile, but they don't for local or public. But it shouldn't really matter because, you know, the PCs never leave the office. So, you know, that was a question that a customer had for me was, you know, why is it showing that all my firewalls are off when they're actually on? So is there something we can do to like adjust that setting or not currently?
Not currently, but basically there was a question by somebody else also on this. And so what we are doing is we are giving you the ability, just like we've done with the company and asset diagnostic settings, you will be able to control the ratings that you want for each one of those metrics, like which metrics you want to basically, like for example, if you take firewall settings, the local firewall, domain firewall, what should be the metric that we should use? If it's switched on, how many marks should we give it? If it is switched off, how many marks should we give it? So you can define that. And based on that, it will rate each of the assets.
Okay, yeah, that'll be great once we can do that.
Perfect. Marcia, I would like to have an Azure AD and M365 report I can download and send to customers, license allocated, available privileged users, secure score, trend history, secure score recommendations. Yes, Marcia, we can basically get this done. Vrishali, can you please assign this to Divin and we can basically get a report out from Lisha next week, please?
Sure, sir.
Okay, and then any ETA on adding the custom reports from the report Peter builder to the scheduler? As I said, we are basically revamping it with more items and then we will basically add scheduler to it. We can add the scheduler very quickly. If you're using it, just let us know. We can basically put that in the next release. Shiva, can you tell us where the recordings of these meetings and training videos are available? Yeah, it is in the YouTube channel that is that Paul was kind enough to basically put up over there. So that's how we do it. A global report for all companies for probes that are online or not. So basically, in the global view, you will just basically click on probes and agents, and you want to see it across all the companies. We'll add a column which basically says which basically shows the company. Correct, Ian?
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know how to see under. Is there anything under global settings where in the dashboards where we could see probes that are online or not?
Okay, we can basically say, I think you're interested in all the offline probes, correct?
I mean, yeah, I mean, a general status of all the companies and all the probes and what their statuses are would be great.
Swami, can we get that added? Because I think that's not much of work, right? Could we just get that added very quickly?
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And I submitted a support request. I have a lot of lightweight agents that are just going offline where the service is just stopping. And I have a lot of probes that are just kind of out in the, out to lunch where you try to restart a service and it's just saying, nope, you can't control me right now. So I've been having to reinstall a lot of probes. So that's a support request for another time, but having a global view of the status would get me quicker to where the issues lie.
Got it, Ian. And we'll also basically look at why your probes are stopping. I will just basically have that checked from the backend to see if there are any thing which is showing us that your probes are crashing or your lightweight agents are crashing.
Thank you. I'm not sure that it matters, but it helps for me to say maybe that we are self-hosted. So I don't know if that plays into it whatsoever, but that is a thing as well.
No, it should not, because it's the same code base that runs wherever.
Sure. Sure. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sean, we have it in the documentation. I'll send you the link to the documentation. And basically, the normal value basically represents what is basically an acceptable value. And the risk weightage basically tells you like what should be the weightage provided to that. Like on a score of 100, like do you want to give it 15 marks or you want to give it 20 marks? So that is essentially the risk weightage. So I think we're all caught up for this week. So
Shiva,
yeah.
I have what may be a somewhat obscure question. You had talked in the new architecture about separating out the authentication layer. One of the things we've talked about in the past was it would be useful to us, I think, to be able to create a dashboard, say an executive dashboard, or use one of the existing dashboards, and then send a link to, say, the company CEO that doesn't require a login, that they could just basically, periodically just get access to that dashboard and see an overall status. Is that something that will be easier to do in the new architecture because you're separating out the authentication? We would want to include the authentication in the link so they don't have to log in, if that makes sense.
Yes, Dennis. So with the new architecture, we'll be able to you can take any dashboard and basically create a link out of it, and basically it will link back into that dashboard without them having access to any of the other pieces. So that basically the key that we generate is a temporary key, which will be valid for whatever time you define, 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever it is. And then during that period, if they click, they can basically go to that link. And if you basically say never expires, then it will always be available for them.
That would be great. Yeah, just to be able to just sort of make it accessible to people at the higher level of management who don't want or need to see all the details. Just a kind of a high level thing that they can check whatever they want to. That'd be great. Thank you.
So Ali and Ruben, I think basically this would have been recent, because what would be happening is that because of the certificate revocation, maybe the antivirus is basically killing the agent. But I'll basically have Vishali send you over instructions for just running one of them in debug mode so that we can essentially have a look at it very quickly. And in case there's a problem, we can fix it very quickly. And George.
Okay. Real quick, we actually spent this last week. We are primarily a SOFO shop with regards to antivirus, all the EDR stuff. We did just put in global policies to, allow the CyberCNS directory under program files. And then we also went through the documentation that CyberCNS has for the EDR stuff in terms of the dissolvable agent that lives under Windows. So we also just added that as well. So we wanted to get all of that kind of stuff out of the way before we were kind of scratching our head as, okay, what could this be now? But yeah, like I said, I did I submit a support request with the screenshot of the status of the service, where it's just like, I can't do anything. So yeah, and I see, and if I'm messing up your name, I apologize, Marcia. I've been trying to do that. But what happens is I end up with I can't control, Windows comes back and says, I can't control the service right now. So that's what I've been dealing with. So, but thank you guys.
Yeah, this is Ali. I just add to what George said, surprisingly, we're Sophos shop as well, and it's all been excluded. In some situation, even reboot doesn't work. We have to uninstall it completely and then reinstall it. And it's been a challenge for us.
Ali, the only request I would have is that if you have one such machine where this problem occurs the next time around, if you can just give us access to that machine, I will myself look at it, because I think we just need to look at whether something was deleted by, say, an EDR agent, because we found this in two places where they were reporting the same issue. Like a couple of the files that were required were basically just deleted from the system, and then after that it basically got okay. So that's the reason I just want to look at the system, and then I'll be able to kind of quickly resolve it for you.
Okay, will do. Appreciate it.
So George, basically send reports as attachments and not just 7-zip them. The problem, George, is that these reports are basically fairly heavy in terms of the size. So basically it usually goes and gets stuck in terms of emails getting bounced, saying that the reports are too big, etc. Or we'll have to basically just send one report per email. So that's the only reason why we are basically 7-zipping them. So we can basically give an option over there which says that, do you want to 7-zip it or not 7-zip it? But if it doesn't go through, then that will essentially be something that you'll have to deal with. Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks for providing that explanation. I just didn't really look at how big the actual reports were. I was only going to generate like a couple of them that I wanted to send out automatically. But yeah, if it can be an option, something that we can test, yeah, that would be great.
I will basically get that added. Rochelle, can you add this also to the list, please?
Yes, sir, sure.
Ian and Mark, yep. Mark actually gave this answer to Joey yesterday on this thing. It was perfect answer, because if we kill the process tree, then it basically comes back up. But we basically anyway have to look at why basically it goes into that state. So that's this thing. And as we said, the moment the certificate revocation thing started, that's when these problems started. So we will basically investigate whether that's the root cause or there is something else underlying this whole thing.
Very cool. Much appreciated again. Thank you.
Overview report saving to PDF, results in a PDF file with open desktop. Kibana reports are fading. Do you see the data, Mircea, under the report, or it's an empty PDF file with just that title? Okay. Yeah, we will check why that heading is coming, because it's probably just because it's the default. We'll just make sure that the default is changed. Perfect. So, folks, I don't know how many of you are going to the Right of Boom conference. So I hope if you're going there, I hope you have a good time there. And we will basically be back next week with all the updates. And by that time, we would have released the patching feature. So we'll actually do a live demo of the patching feature next week. And in the meanwhile, basically, as I said, if you basically are facing any persistent issues, such as the ones that we brought in today, we are happy to jump onto a call and basically troubleshoot it and debug it till we fix it. That's our commitment. So please basically just let us know. And I'm just going to drop my email in here in case any of you who basically is having a problem that is not getting sorted out in the normal support process, or it's taking too long. Please feel free to just send it to me, and I will basically get it handled. So thank you all. Have a great day and a great time, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Shiva.
Thank you. Bye.